Hello folks, so this is the cables for Bluetooth for hooking the SM10, Sena SM10 to the Spider radio that Motorcycle Dave will be selling as part of his kits. You can get pricing and everything like that. I wanted to show the construction. We're using a real connector that BRP uses. We are plugging the holes with pin plugs, just like the BRP connector would for water tightness. And as you can see, it's very well made. A couple of tie wraps holding the two cables together. And then you have your audio connector and your USB connector. USB connector is for charging the SM10 when the key of your Spider is on. When the key of your Spider is off, it does not charge the SM10. And of course, the audio connector that feeds into the radio. All right, we'll be showing how to install it. There's a couple ways to do it, a very simple way, and then some more complex ways. I will discuss each one. Additionally, as I said, the SM10 will mount in your trunk. Now mine is mounted here. Here's my current cable. Basically the SM10 mounting bracket that comes with it gets stuck here, and as you see, there's a slide and it simply latches in there. Okay, and you can latch it either way. I usually latch mine with the ports on the bottom like so. Now, you will need one tool for sure that you may not have, but you're going to have to borrow one, but we need to drill a hole in the trunk. Now, as you see, I drilled my hole up here, therefore my cables just simply run under there. You can drill a hole here where the MP3 jack is, here, and mount your SM10 wherever you like. The cable's just long enough to reach up here. In my opinion, this makes it easy because you can run the cable up through the hinge hole and drill one simple hole. The hole must be big enough for the connectors to fit through. Okay, what I did is I drilled a small hole, and then I had a reaming tool that I just enlarged the hole with rather than go find a drill bit that big. Okay, a wood drill bit may work on that, but again, that's what I did. I reamed it out. Now, if you don't have a drill, just some ideas. You could use a hot knife. It is plastic. To cut that open. You know, there's some other ideas you could do to get a hole in there. One might even just cut a notch here and have the cable run in that notch. However, the trunk seal runs along here and hits this lip. If you do decide, rather than drill a hole, to cut a V here, which may be very simple to do with a handsaw, and cut a V, just make sure that you fill it with some silicone so you put this bead, this ridge back, so it's watertight. That's if you want it watertight. If you're not going to ride in the rain and stuff, doesn't matter. Don't just leave the cable going over the lip, because that'll interfere with your seal and hinge, and also pinch into the wires, which could damage them. So again, you will need a hole of some kind. Some people put it here. Some people, I put mine here. That's where I mounted my SM10. Okay, so then again, the USB connector. And on the SM10, I'll just show you this real quick, pardon me. On the SM10, there's two audio connectors. One's aux and one's input. They're both labeled. You want to hook the audio connector to the audio in. It will work in the aux, but audio in has an override over aux, okay? So make sure you hook that up right, and there's your USB connector, okay? So now let's go show you how to hook the cable to the radio and what panels you have to remove. Okay, to get at the radio, which is under this cover, we need to remove this screw here, and there's a screw right up under there. See it? Right up under there. All right, this one's fairly easy to get at. You can actually get at it with a Torx on a screwdriver handle. This one, unfortunately, you can't. I picked up this wrench at Harbor Freight for cheap, which gives you a ratchet style, which gets in there perfectly. If you don't have this, what you can do is just take the bit and a pair of pliers, put the bit in, hold it down with your finger, and use the pliers to loosen it, and same thing under for that back one. You can just use that with pliers. So you don't have to go buy this if you don't need to. Before I owned this, that's what I did, a pair of pliers. And once you get the screw loose, then usually you can just take it out with your hand. All right, let's get those two screws out and we'll continue. Okay, with those two screws out, this panel is now loose, as you see. And what you want to do is pry this panel up. All right, it won't break. You can flex it quite a bit. And we want to pry it up high enough so that we can slide this panel inward under here without scratching this. What I usually do is put a rag over the hump here, because when you slide that panel in, this panel can scratch it, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. I can't do it with one hand, I apologize, but again, you just grab this panel here, and it'll slide underneath this like so. See that? All right, now be careful. There's a set of wires there, so if you want, just unplug that and set this panel aside. Okay, so here are the radio. Here's the radio, and here are the connections. There are two ports, one here and one here. This is the main motorcycle or the bike harness, and then what is called RD02. It's another connector here. Now, typically, you won't have anything plugged in here. There'll be a rubber cap over this. All right, I'm going to pull my radio out so I can show you clearly how this looks. Anyway, if you have something plugged in here, it will be the entertainment harness. If you have the entertainment harness there, but you do not have XM radio or CB, it is okay to unplug that harness and tuck the connector away, as you are not actually using it. If you have XM radio or CB, you cannot have, if you have CB, you cannot have Bluetooth. So you will lose your CB and XM radio if you unplug this. If you have XM radio only but don't have CB, then you bought the wrong connector. This connector won't work for you. The one that Motorcycle Dave is going to be offering. There is a connector that can be made to support the entertainment harness for XM radio. But again, if you also have CB, you cannot go Bluetooth. That's just the way BRP did it. Anyway, let me get this radio out so I can clearly show you these connectors. Okay, the radio is out and you can clearly see this connector here. Now, again, there'll be a rubber cap over here, which you will pull the rubber cap off, which will expose pins in that connector. Now, the Bluetooth connector goes with this clip at the bottom, can only go one way, and this tab up here at the top. All right, now, a word of caution. Again, I took my radio out so you could see, but when these connectors are plugged in, you cannot get the radio out. You have to unplug them, all right? So just be aware of that. Now, they're extremely difficult to unplug when the radio's seated down in there. It's very tight down in here. If you plan to ever unplug this, I recommend putting a twist tie through these two openings here in this tab, making a loop you can get your finger on. The reason being is when you squeeze this clip to unplug it and unlatch it, you do not want to pull on these wires. I'm saying it again, do not pull on these wires. There's a good chance you will rip them out of the connector doing that. Like any plug, you do not pull on the wires. Pardon my shaky hand. Okay, so again, if you plan to unplug this once it's in there, which I will show you installed, then you may want to put a twist tie or something through this tab so it gives you a finger loop to pull it out. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and plug this in and have the radio back in, and we'll show you that plugged in. Okay, as you see, the Bluetooth cable is now plugged in this connector. Again, you cannot lift this radio out without unplugging these. Now, if you didn't put a loop on there, I will tell you, you can get a screwdriver at an angle under here onto that tab, reach under, pull, and unlatch it and pry the connector out. Do not pull on the wires, please. Okay, so that's basically it. Now all you got to do is run these wires back up here. Okay, they fit totally fine on top of the radio. And now we'll discuss routing the cable up to the trunk. Okay, so the simplest way would be to just tuck these wires in. You want to get them back here in the corner, so when that cover goes back on, they're coming out of the corner back here of the cover, and the cover will go on there without really pinching them off. So the cheap route or the simple route would be, once you get your cover back on, is just tuck the wires in around the back of the seat rest. Just tuck them in, drill your hole, and stuff them up through here. All right, up through here, because that's the backrest right back there. That would be the cheap route to do it. However, I'm going to show you a little better way, and that is we are going to remove the backrest, okay? To remove the backrest, there are 3 screws. One here, one down here. Whoops, wait a minute. Sorry. One here, one here, one here. You remove those. And then 2 up here that you loosen, okay? You just loosen them because they're in slots. So let's go ahead and get those 3 screws out. Now, one point I want to tell you, there are captured nuts in the backrest. When you're taking these screws out, do not push in on them. Just let them come out. If you push in on them, there's a chance you can push the captured nut inside the back of the seat rest, knocking it out of its captured hole, thus losing it in the back seat, the seat rest. So don't push on these screws as you're taking them out. All right, let's get those screws out, these two loose, and we'll take off the backrest. Okay, with the 3 screws out and the 2 up top loose, it's a simple matter of pulling the backrest off. Now I have an antenna for my alarm. Anyway, so as you can see now, we clearly have a run up from this cable up into this hinge hole. There's the hinge hole. Pardon me, need some light here. There's the hinge hole right here. And you can clearly see now you can run that cable. You see this standoff here? You can run it right up here, and when the backrest goes on, it won't crush the cable. All right, so let me route that cable and show you somewhat what that looks like. Okay, as you see, pardon me, I'm blocking off some sun. You can see my hole. You can see the cable. I put it in the crack seam of where the speaker box meets here. There's a crack there, down. Now, all we'd have to do at this point is put our cover back on here, making sure that this cable's in the corner where the cover has a little gap. It won't pinch it. Then you can just tuck this back here. Now, the only problem with this is once the backrest goes back on, you can actually see a little bit of that cable between the backrest and the seat. So let me put the backrest on and show you what I mean. Okay, I've put the radio cover back on, and you can see that little bit of cable coming up there. Now, because of the orange cable, it's highly visible. If you wanted to, you could put some tubing or something over it. But this is the simplest form of installing it with just removing the backrest. To really hide this cable, the next step I'm going to show you, let me show the cable here, so you can see it's there. If the cable was, if the USB cable was black, it would look better. Dave and I will investigate getting black later. But again, you could hide that with some heat shrink tubing or some tubing. The other thing you could do, and this is what I'm going to show, is simply, we're not going to remove the speaker box. We're going to loosen it and pull it away. This will allow us to get this cable in that seam and completely hidden. All right, so I'm going to show you how to do that. We do not have to completely remove, pardon me, my old cable's in the way. We do not have to completely remove the back. A lot of people don't like to do that. What we will be doing is we'll be taking out these 2 screws, all right? We will also be taking out these 2 screws, all right? Then this will allow us to pull this panel away and get at the screws that hold the speaker box on. So there's 2 screws under this panel, and there are 3 screws for the speaker box. 1 here, 1 here, 1 here. So I'm going to take these 3 screws out. We're going to loosen this panel, as I said. I'm going to take these 2 screws out, and we're going to show you how this speaker box can move away so we can hide that wire. Okay, so I've removed those 2 screws. I've removed those 2 screws, and as you see now, what you can do is just grab this panel and pull it away. This will give us access to these 2 speaker box screws. So let's go ahead and remove those and the 3 on the inside, and we'll come back and take a look. Okay, with those screws loose, the speaker box, as you see, moves away. And as you can see where we had the cable plugged in, now we are fully capable of putting it and tucking it inside the speaker box. So see, I'm tucking it under there, tucking it up. Well, I moved the speaker box quite a bit away. Anyway, as you can see, there's your MP3 connector, and now we've got the cable fully behind the speaker box. Now we can just simply put the speaker box back, which is hard for me to do with one hand. Anyway, let me get the speaker box back, and you will see how concealed those cables are. Okay, as you can now see, the cables are fully concealed. Don't worry about these. The backrest will completely hide these. But as you can see, when we bolt that speaker box back on, that cable is fully concealed where nobody is going to see it. This is the recommended way by removing those screws. Takes all of a few minutes. I highly recommend doing that rather than having the cable outside. All right, so that completes putting the cable in. Don't forget to put your 2 screws back for the radio cover. And you've got it mounted. The next thing you need to do, simply drill a hole and plug your wiring in, and you are complete. And that will do it. That shows the installation of the Motorcycle Dave Sena SM10 Bluetooth cable. Okay, just to close on some tips on the SM10. So one thing about this unit is there's an internal battery. When you turn the unit on, and the key is on your Spider, it will charge the unit. As you see, I've got a blue light right now, but if it was charging, it would be red. That's that little LED right there. Okay, so if you're not seeing blue or red when the key is on, make sure your USB connector is plugged fully in. That connector, that orange connector that plugs in there is tight. So make sure you've got it pushed all the way in so that you get a blue or red when the key is on. Now, when the key is off, and I'll just simulate that by unplugging the USB, you'll see you have no LED right here. It is now using the internal battery on the SM10. You have about 10 hours before that battery will drain. When it drains, it will take about 10 to 20 minutes to get enough charge before the unit will work again. So I recommend whenever you park that you turn the unit off, okay? Turn the unit off, and that saves the internal battery. When you come to use it again, turn it on. If you leave it on and it goes past, say, 10 hours or whatever the limit is, and that battery drains, it does take about 10, 15, 20 minutes to charge enough before the unit will come on and power on. You'll know that because the LEDs around the button won't be on until that battery's charged up enough, okay? So just a word of caution there. Now, if you don't want to use the switched 12-volt USB that charges when the key is on older models, and I believe you change a fuse to make this 12-volt socket live, the SM10 does come with a 12-volt cigarette lighter. You could plug that in and plug the connector in across here from that, and then that will keep the unit, if you leave it on all the time, that will keep the unit charged. However, please note, while your key is off and it's charging that unit from your battery, I don't know how long it would take, might be a week, maybe 2 weeks. Keeping this thing on and charged may drain your battery on your Spyder, thus not allowing you to start your bike if you drain it too much. But it is an option. I did want to tell you about using the supplied 12-volt cigarette lighter that the SM10 comes with. All right, that's if you want to leave it on, not worry about turning it on and off every time you want to use it, and want to make sure it works when you come in to use your motorcycle. If you leave the unit on with the supplied connector that charges from the radio, there's a good chance you come back 24 hours later, whatever, and the unit is dead and requires about a 10-15 minute charge before it will function again. Okay, so this finishes with the SM10 Bluetooth system hooked to the Spyder's audio system using the Motorcycle Dave cable. It's the cable I'm making for Dave now. And if you have any questions, feedback on this video or the unit itself, go ahead and contact Motorcycle Dave, or you can contact myself, Finless Bob. Anyway, hope this installation was as easy as I showed. It certainly is. Anybody should be able to do it with basic tools. I hope this was helpful. Enjoy.